sans dire à tout.
What's going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy. You're watching Nocturnal Transmission, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. Conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. Although that little tagline may not apply for this episode because we are actually doing a pre-tape. Rob had a scheduling conflict, and so instead of leaving me hanging to do the live stream by myself, he was being a proper gentleman and a good friend, and doing this pre-tape with me. So, as ever, co-piloting this thing with me is the homeboy Rob.
And don't ever say I never did nothing for you, Andy.
Yeah. Let's remember that. Let's remember that when I might be a day late with your show.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Well, we're gonna be a week late with our show because of a few scheduling conflicts. So
yes,
hey, it's okay.
Yes.
It happens.
It happens. We're moving past it. So
we are.
So yes, Rob, what's new with you?
Not too much. I finally have a rare couple of days off in a row. So, I'm just taking the time to relax a little bit, take care of some spring cleaning that I desperately need to do. I've been putting that off and more and more. And
you gotta clean your room. You're gonna go out there and change the world.
Yeah,
change the world.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, see, I'm not angry at the world like a lot of those people are that need to clean their room. Mine is just more of I'm busy trying to make a difference in the world, and so my own place needs to be cleaned too.
You gotta clean your room, and you gotta appeal to your ancestral fathers.
Yeah. The funny thing, I always hear Jordan Peterson's voice when I come home, and I'm looking. It's like, God, this place is a mess. I need to.
I'm the same way with my room because I listen to a lot of his lectures and it's constantly like clean your room, and I'm just like I look around my room just like tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's most people's reaction to it. It's like, fuck it, I don't want to do it today. I'll just do it tomorrow.
Right. So it's like, we're kind of, even though we respect the man and his advice, it's just, we're still in a weird way, we're kind of like, what is it? In the Bible, the prodigal son. Is it the prodigal son? No, it's not the prodigal son. But it's the two sons, and one is told by the father to do something, and he says he will, but he doesn't. But then the other son says that he won't, but he ends up doing it later.
Oh, that was crap. That was wasn't that one of Jesus' parables?
Yeah, it was.
I'm drawing a blank on exactly where that is right now.
Again, I'm a terrible Christian. I can't remember what book or chapter or verse it was. I remember the story.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot where I'm like, I don't remember exactly where this is in the Bible, but I know that this is a story or a parable or something that is, and so I'm able to recall the story. I just can't always remember exactly where in the Bible it is. So,
but I think it was talking about. What was that?
And so I was saying, forgive us, we might be a little bit off, but we.
But I remember, I think. Yeah, but I think the point of the story was, about who's truly following the father's command. Is the one, is it the son that says that he will do it, but he doesn't end up doing it, or is it the son that says he won't do it, but then eventually he eventually does do
it? Yeah, it's like for me, it's like it. Well, calling back to that idea, it's obedience is always greater than sacrifice, as we learn in the story of Solomon and Samuel, where or not Solomon, Saul, King Saul, when he goes against God's wishes because he felt like, oh no, we needed to give a sacrifice to God so that we could pay pay tribute to him. But Samuel's like, well, no, you disobeyed what God wanted you to do. Obedience is always greater than sacrifice. And so it's doing the things that God asks us to do is way more important than saying the right words or doing the right things, but actually going out and doing what God wants is much more important.
Right. And so I guess in a sense I guess we more identify with the second son. I mean, at least in link to like the whole advice that Jordan Peterson gives about cleaning your room.
Yeah,
we're definitely the second son. Where it's like no, but then we'll inevitably be doing it later.
Well, I think the other thing that also goes in our favor too is we're not people who are angry at the world or hate Western culture or are calling everybody Nazis and all this.
Yeah, I mean,
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I am an admitted Western chauvinist.
Yeah, I would say that's.
I mean, yeah, because I reject the fallacy of all cultures are equal because
Yeah,
because
they're not.
Yeah, because from my you kind of hear growing up at least being the child of immigrant parents, you constantly hear about their experience growing up. They always say like, oh, like when you get benched or to get detention in school for acting up or horsing around or whatever. And, my dad will always go like, oh well, if I acted up, in class, I get I have to lift up, I'd have to lift cinder blocks over my head. I get my ass whipped by the teacher.
Yep.
And I mean, I know there's like further separation between my dad's time and either when I was growing up in like the 90s and stuff. But even when I heard stories from friends that were that did come like from Korea and stuff, or like my cousins, they'd be like, yeah, even in the 90s, they would still like they still have corporal punishment for kids, and that was just kind of like the norm. It's just like that is that's an example right there where I feel that the West has it better than most, without like without like physical corporal punishment. Even though like benching somebody or giving a kid detention is kind of like corporal punishment, but just not abusive.
Without the West, especially, and the West is founded, whether people like it or not, is founded on Judeo-Christian principles in a lot of ways, and because of that, care for women and children is way better than it ever has in any time of the history of the world. And all I had to do is just look over a little bit and see how certain cultures treat women and children, and
or even the gays.
That is, I mean, even that too. Like people who are weird and different, kind of different than the norm. It's like, but in the West, they're actually treated well and with respect. I mean, not always, but for the most part, it's been a hell of a lot better than any other point in the history of the world.
Well, let's just say that in the United States, gays aren't being thrown off roofs.
Yeah, I think that's
Just
a pretty
saying.
good thing. It's true.
Just saying.
And you can kind of, here you really can be whatever the hell you want to be.
I mean, I don't know. I think that I think some people are taking that a little bit too far.
I mean, a little bit too crazy, but in the sense of something that whatever, as long as it's not you're not infringing on other people's rights, or then yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want, essentially.
I mean, and that used to be the standard. You know what?
Yeah,
do whatever you want.
Just
just don't involve me. Don't infringe on my rights or my property, or my sense of morality. And, we'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now it's like, no, you have to be accepting. You have to bake the cake. You have to, you have to say these words, or you're racist, bigot, homophobe, transphobe.
Well, then I'm probably the biggest one out there then, because I refuse to use those words.
Yeah, I mean,
I refuse to call someone a Z. It's like that's stupid.
What the hell is that? And they make that argument saying that they them pronouns exist or are in usage. Like, yeah, fine, but you don't. I'm not. You're either one or the other. Like, I understand. If you're talking more imprecisely, like you don't know. You find something, you're not exactly sure whose it is. Oh, I wonder who. I wonder if they know. They lost this, or I wonder how I can get it back to them. That means, like, I don't know, who you are, or the specific gender that you are, and so I'm using like these indeterminate pronoun, just in the interim until I find out for sure. As opposed to me using them to talk about you specifically, which I think is it kind of makes you feel crazy. If I'm to be honest,
it was one of those things. I remember, oh god, this is probably a few years ago when they came out with, there was a Bible translation that came out where they tried to eliminate, they tried to make it like gender neutral.
Yeah.
But then the thing is, I was upset about that because it goes against a lot of how like the original languages. It doesn't talk. It's
right.
Where maybe in the English form, like the gender isn't necessarily as important in English, but when you're looking back at the original languages that the Bible has, gender is very, very important in how things are translated.
Right.
And so if I'm upset at that point, like where it's I'm not, and this isn't because like I hate those people or whatever, but like I'm not going to use those words because they're not real words. They're made up nonsense.
Right. Exactly. Sometimes
I don't have to say those words if I don't want to say those words.
Right. And I mean the importance of gender was kind of crucial to some of the teachings, because you have the woman at the well, where Jesus was kind of.
Then it's like the person at the well just doesn't do it.
It's like or the Z at the well, or even after Jesus' death and his resurrection, the first person he appeared to was Mary, a woman, and you think that you kind of take it for granted now, but back then it's like
that's
back
huge.
then a woman's testimony was worth nothing. So like when she went to go to the other disciples and say, "Oh, I saw Jesus, he's alive," they would have been like, whatever, Mary.
Yeah.
And so like it wasn't just like arbitrary that Jesus showed himself, and like the first person that he showed himself to after the resurrection was a woman, because he wanted to make a point.
Yeah, you could almost really, in kind of a weird way, was that, especially in, you look at the Gospel of Luke, is how, Jesus is, kind of, I hate to use this word, but he is a real ally of women, which is a really big, which is where I see, the big shift in, Western culture, because, Jesus is, gives women respect, and puts a lot of you know gives a lot of respect towards women, and
Right.
uses them a lot in his ministry. Like, there's women in his ministry that are very prominent, and yeah, like, and especially like where kind of flipping the script, and it's like where women are seen as like their testimony or their witness isn't good enough, but he appears to them first. Or there's just there's so many different examples that he shows a lot of care and respect for women, that that was so crazy and foreign at the time.
Yeah, like with the woman and the jar of perfume. The men were like were like, what are you doing? You just wasted that money that could have gone to feed the poor. But Jesus was like, hey, I mean, for those of you that don't know the story, like this guy, was it a lawyer or a teacher of the law? Invited him over to his house and did back then, the custom to show like hospitality and honor to a guest was to wash their feet.
Yeah.
But the host didn't even do that. This woman who I guess like kind of tailed them to that guy's house, and came in and wept all over his feet, and and wiped her tears with her hair, like ostensibly like cleaning his feet, which something that that the man should have done, but he didn't do it. And then she anointed him with this oil or this perfume that was the equivalent of a year's salary back then.
Yeah. Well, the other big significance in that too is that woman was the only one that recognized the situation. Like, she was the only one that saw what was really happening, because Jesus before this is he's been saying that I'm going to die, be raised in 3 days. That time is coming.
So yeah, she's like preparing his body.
She was anointing his body for death. That was the significance of her, kind of pouring that perfume on his body. It was one of the death rituals that in preparing a body. And she's the only one, even out of all the disciples and all the scholars that were there, that didn't recognize the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, I think that's story. Well, I think it's in. I don't remember if it's just Luke or if it's in all the synoptics, but the fact that that's pointed out is showing that hey, here's a woman who really, they're the ones that really get the situation. They're the only ones that seem to have the correct vision. Is that Jesus has been trying to teach his disciples, but they're just not getting at that point in time.
Yeah, and then
so they're really the first one, and he that's put in the Bible because they're the first ones to really recognize Jesus for who he is.
Yeah, I mean, another case of women getting it before the men was Mary and Martha.
Yeah, they understood too.
Were those Lazarus' sisters, or
I
forget.
Yeah, they were Lazarus' sisters, and then well, then of course you have Jesus' mother, Mary, and then I think it was kind of his aunt, where which was John the Baptist's mother, understood the situation too, like when they yeah. So I mean, it's like so women in Jesus' life played a prominent role.
But like,
So
for those of you that don't know, the Mary and Martha one was, there was like this, Jesus comes into town, and they decide to have like this nice feast, this nice dinner for him. And Martha, I think she was the oldest sister. She was like running around and doing things, and Mary was, sitting at the feet of Jesus, just kind of like basking in, in Jesus' presence. And then, I mean, you guys didn't know back then, but like women did a lot of the kind of domestic things, like cooking and and cleaning and looking after the men. And then so Martha, being kind of frustrated with the situation, she's like, Jesus, tell lazy, Mary to get off her lazy ass and help me. And then and then again, Jesus was like, you don't understand. She's doing something greater than what you're doing. Because I mean, I understand. He was like, yeah, I get it. You're taking care of us, and thank you for that. But she's in the presence of the Lord or whatever.
Yeah.
So so it really goes like God wants us, wants our attention, wants our love, and he doesn't care so much about the acts of servitude or kind of the busy work that we sometimes get distracted by. He just wants us.
And that's where that's why I always like laugh when people say that Christianity is just this horrible women hating religion, and it's racist and all this other stuff. It's like, well, actually no, I don't think you've ever actually read the Bible once, because if you had, you would see something that's just not the truth. They're getting a kind of this weird getting this weird sideways falsehood from people who don't understand the Bible themselves, or have abused used the Bible and its teaching, or they've what's the word I'm looking for? They've skewed the teaching to
they've corrupted or perverted the teachings.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're hearing it kind of second and third and fourth hand from these people who have no idea what they're talking about. And so then they, consider themselves to be experts, and it's ridiculous. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. I know, right? Yeah, I just love our conversations and where they go. I was initially just making kind of cracking a joke about Jordan Peterson, and all of a sudden we're going into Bible and theology. And
all our pre-tapes have seemed to kind of get really heavy for some reason.
Yeah. Or I mean, not like heavy in a black pill kind of way, but just kind of they take on I think we feel free to talk about maybe more substantive, or maybe more serious topic, but not in that gloomy, pessimistic kind of way. But just this stuff is it's more important, because we're talking about people's immortal souls and morality and
it's I
and maybe a better way of living, which actually does go back to the Jordan Peterson thing. Is that
right.
that that's one of the 12. I believe that's one of the 12 rules in his book, Antidote for Chaos. Yeah. It's just, and he's all about just living better, being your best self, irrespective of religion, just being your better self.
It's kind of yeah. Well, I personally like you and I, we both love listening to Jordan Peterson, and it's we're almost kind of he hasn't necessarily said that like, oh yeah, I'm a believer per se, but we're almost we're seeing him really like wrestling um with the idea of it, and trying to he's working through a lot of that
Right.
stuff,
Yeah,
and
he's wrestling.
I
I
think
mean, much in the same way
which
as
is
Jacob wrestled.
yeah, I see a lot of that wrestling that he's going through, which is a great thing. And I think he's I wouldn't necessarily agree with some of his theological outlook, but it's but there's a lot of he's pulled out a lot of like actually good points. Like the one that I really appreciate from him was the whole idea of where he thinks that Christianity has it right is that suffering is just a natural part of life, and we could say like, oh wow, like how a lot of people are saying, oh that's unfair, like it's, and so they rage against it, whereas you look at Christianity, and if you really believe in that, it's you embrace the suffering
Right.
because well hell,
And
Jesus went through a hell of a lot worse than we did. He's gone through it all, like, and he's even said that if who among you is greater than his master, it's like, so if I've suffered, you're going to suffer too, in the in my name, unfortunately, and you embrace it and you grow from it and you learn from it. That's true. That's the heart of being a believer. Is there is, trust me, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of peace, but a lot of the times it's happening through suffering. Your life's not going to be necessarily a hunky dory life all the time, but at the same time, even amidst like a lot of chaos that you might go through, there's going to be peace and serenity. If you try, especially if you trust in God.
I mean, even Jesus said like that it wasn't, following him wasn't going to be easy, and he was basically saying that there's going to be suffering. But what he didn't say was that there was only going to be suffering.
Right.
That there is, that there will be a reward waiting for you. There is a reward that will, that is awaiting for you. And so, and not to lose heart. But in terms of like the suffering thing, I think if you look back, if you look at the story of the Garden of Eden,
Mhm.
and kind of and really look at it, humanity in the representation of Adam and Eve chose the suffering. We chose, humanity chose to suffer because God only had that one rule: eat whatever you want, just don't eat from this one tree. That's all you have to do. And we would have a perfect existence. We'd have a perfect relationship between God and ourselves, and we chose we chose suffering. We chose to be our own gods. We chose to be separated from God. So in a way, humanity has chosen suffering.
Yeah, I mean that's uh, it's one of those things where yeah, we do have. I mean, this is kind of like something I've been wrestling with too, because I it's one of those things where it these two ideas shouldn't work together, but I think in some weird way they do, and that we have free will, but we're not necessarily we fool ourselves into thinking that we are free. So I always hear the argument that Christianity is like, well, man, it's so restrictive. Why don't you can't just do whatever you want? And it's like, well, we see it as something where well, we have to serve something. It's like, we think that, oh, if I'm not a if I'm not a Christian, that like, oh, I'm just free. I can do whatever I want. And it's like, well, no, you're actually like a slave to something in that sense. So you're serving something.
Right. Just because you have freedom doesn't mean that there aren't rules.
Right. And but when we do serve Christ, and when we fall in line of that way, we do actually have freedom. And Paul I think it's Paul that writes this, but it's it's like not all things are acceptable, are
all things are permissible, but not all things are.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word permissible, but not all things are beneficial. And that's really the case. Like, you look, it's like, well, you know what? Sure. Okay. I could go and, do all this other stuff, but there's consequences to doing those things. And
yeah, can you drink a whole bottle of Jack? Sure.
Right.
But, just maybe not, maybe not drink the bottle in one sitting.
Exactly. It's kind of, and it's like I said, there's a lot of, I feel like more free than, other people, where they're like, oh, I gotta make this, like, a certain amount on this paycheck, or I have to obtain these things, or I have to, accomplish these things, or have that big house, or I got to make sure I beat that guy. And, the thing is, that's where a lot of the people think they're free, but you look at it, it's like, well, no, you're not, because you're kind of a slave to what's going on in the world, and you're always at odds with somebody else, and there's all this stuff going on, and it's like you're not really free. You have no, when other people succeed over you, you have no joy in them succeeding. You don't, you're always, if you don't get certain things, you feel like you're worthless, and it's a really, like, terrible way to be, I think. I'm not saying that it's bad to go after, and do your best and obtain things, and like I said, use your talents and gifts, but if that's all it's about, is attaining the things, and not, like, kind of the journey, and like, what are we doing it for? And if you don't have a good answer for, like, why you're doing it, if it's just for the sake of acquiring more things, or having more money, or more opportunity, it's like, well, you're always going to be chasing that rabbit.
Right. I mean, all is folly. All is folly.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're merely doing things for yourself, you're never going to be satisfied. And I think that's a lot of what greed is. Especially if you're merely acquiring wealth for yourself. It's just like $1,000 doesn't mean anything. And then you get $10,000. That's still not. That still doesn't. Isn't enough for you. Because we're human beings and we're flawed. And there's no way that we can ever be fully satisfied with ourselves. We constantly have to attain and acquire and be better than the next guy. And so, but what if you were living with someone who doesn't really care, how much money you have in the bank, or the car you drive, or what table at a restaurant you can get by just saying I'm this person. If you didn't have all those pressures, how much more free could you live your life? When when all you can offer up is like $1, that's perfect. Or you only have like a 2-bedroom house. Person comes, that's perfect.
Right.
Only God is the one that'll see what everything that you have and say that that's enough. Like, that's enough. I'll take it from
But yeah, I mean that's kind of like I said. You can become an easy slave to those desires, those emotions. You're almost uh, in a lot of ways a slave to yourself,
you.
and that's it's you know uh, you look at the story of the Israelites that are as they're coming out of Egypt, they're finally free after several centuries of being in slavery, and as they're coming out, God has given them their liberty, and I mean the second where there's any sort of hardship, it's like, well, why are we out here? We could have, at least, when we were back there in captivity, we had food, we had this thing.
Yeah, we had houses, we had this, we had goats, we had oxen, we had a cart.
Exactly, but it's like one of those things. So you want to put the chains back on, and that's it's kind of like what happens in life now, where where people, it's like you have the opportunity at freedom, yet you want to keep yourself in chains. Like, give me a break.
And it's the short memory of the past.
Yeah,
we kind of knock people for having short memory spans because of technology or whatever. But the Israelites, they're like the progenitors of that short memory, because during the whole time, that Moses came back and he issued that that declaration, let my people go. God brought down all these plagues. He did all these signs and wonders, and the Israelites saw all these things take place, but yet they still were complaining and griping about, like, oh, it's hot, or like you were saying, it's like, at least back in Egypt we had all these things. It's like, I mean, I can't speak for God, but if I could imagine, it'd be like, I did all these I did these things. I sent frogs. I sent locusts. I made the Nile, run with blood. I parted the Red Sea. I brought down a column of fire as to defend you against, from the Egyptians, so you can make an escape, and yet you still are, complaining. Yeah, that's so.
yeah, absolutely.
It's funny because I always think about this line from that movie, The Santa Claus, where it's like, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing.
Yeah.
So, and then again, in Jesus' time, Jesus performed all these miracles, and yet, not everyone believed.
They didn't see.
They didn't see. They saw, but didn't believe. So,
I mean, they had all the scripture in front of them. They had him right there, displaying the miracles that, to go along with the script, with the scriptures that they had to read, and they still didn't see it,
right?
or were or it was one of those things, just like, no, this isn't real, and so they just chose to
right?
out of fear or whatever,
Yeah,
chose to
charlatan.
go
He's a
against.
swindler. He's an agent of Satan,
Yeah,
which might have been like the proto, like you're a Nazi.
yeah.
The precursor to being called a Nazi is like, oh you're an agent of Satan.
Yeah. The crazy thing about like when I'm reading the Gospels and stuff is because obviously we don't get a lot of the history from the end that goes on between the end of the Old Testament to the beginning of the New Testament, and there's a lot of stuff that went on. There was a lot of history that happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of at least when it came to the Pharisees, who there was, I think, a lot more. I mean, there was pride. There was just, there was, definitely spiritual blindness. But I think there was also a lot of fear on their behalf too, because, after they returned from Babylon and Assyria, the Jews never fell into idol worship again. At least is what we see in the Old Testament. So there was none of that. And I think their biggest fear is that if we don't keep the law, we're never going to break the law again because we don't want to go back into captivity or whatever. And so, what was crazy is they created all these other laws that helped them, to keep the law, the Mosaic law, and that was all those. And all those man-made laws were the ones that Jesus went against and specifically broke, because it's like these aren't real laws. This is not the Mosaic law. That's why I'm like, and I'm the one that created the Mosaic law. So I'm, it's like, so who are you to tell me? Like,
So the other people, they're like freaking out, like, oh, how would you be breaking the law? It's like, well, that really wasn't the law. I'm only following the laws, that came down from God through Moses. And it's kind of like nowadays, with like we're kind of like PC culture, where we have all we have like societal standards. They're not exactly laws, but they're kind of like these observed parameters for interacting with other people within society. They're not laws,
right?
But as soon as you supposedly transgress one of these laws or are not observant of them, you're automatically denounced, automatically called a bigot or Nazi or racist or whatever. But they're not actually laws. They're not. These are just these are more or less niceties to kind of get along with people. But there's the example like or not the example, but you take them too far. And that's when that's when you start getting hate speech, quote unquote, laws, or speech parameters. You can say these words, you can't say those words. And it's interesting because I was watching this video by Owen Benjamin, and he was talking about how he called Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, a dumb N-word. I'm self-censoring, but yeah, he called him a dumb N-word. But he pointed out the irony of him calling Justin Trudeau a dumb N-word, because it was just after the bill, Bill C-16, the pronoun law was ratified, and he was pointing out that the N-word is legal, but not using zer or z was.
Yeah.
So
Kind of crazy.
again, there are laws, and then there are just societal societal society observed norms. Completely different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I won't say that you're fat. You don't. Let's say that I was bald. And you were fat. I won't say that you're fat. You don't say that I'm bald. That's a nicety. It's not a law.
Right.
There's nothing requiring. You can call me out on my baldness. And I can call you out on your fatness. There's no law. It's just socially constructed nicety.
But yeah, so you can't like make like what's where it's like, yeah, okay, maybe it's it's not using those words to, like, make fun of somebody, like, for whatever reason, like, okay, yeah, you're right, that might not be the nice thing to do, and maybe, yeah, we could like learn to be kinder to one another, but when you go ahead and like make it a law, it's no longer, you're not being nice because you're nice,
Right.
you're doing it because there's some sort of
It's no longer genuine.
ramifications if you don't. And that, well, that's one of my big rages against something like socialism. It's like, because if you look at our country, is the most charitable country in the history of the world.
True.
We're what is it? One of a famous saying from Mr. Rogers is that they go, well, what do you do in like the face of like when things look dark and a tragedy, and it's like, well, look where people are helping, and that's like that's where you see like the light in something dark that happens. And we are constantly a country that is willing to send money or send aid or help out when people are in trouble. We do that a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
most
not
recent
perfectly, but we do it a lot.
example would be Harvey. You had the Cajun Navy. It was just,
Yeah.
it was just ordinary people in the neighboring Louisiana, I believe. There's like the little motorized boats, and they were going around picking up stranded people on top of their roofs because of the flooding.
Yeah, but as soon as like you make it like where, oh well, it's if you don't do these things, if you don't give up your money to like help certain people or do these things, well then you're going against the law. Well, that's not the that defeats the spirit of charity. Like you're the only reason you're doing it is because you're forced to do it. Like you don't
Right.
actually, and you start to hold resentment towards the people that are like, that it's meant to help.
Right.
And that defeats the whole purpose of. And so those people no longer have like the dignity that they should have, in being in the image of God. They no longer have dignity because we hate them. Because like, why are we giving money to these people? Like, why am I being forced to give money to these people? And whereas in the system that we have now, people are giving their arms and their legs to help people, charity wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why that's why to me, something like socialism or communism is like, it's never worked, and in the history of the world.
Oh no, you're wrong. It just hasn't been implemented correctly.
Oh, okay, Bernie. It's okay,
No.
Bernie supporter.
It just hasn't been implemented correctly. We do it. We'll do it. We'll do it right.
Yeah, it's just
no.
I don't. And it's like, yeah, but I think like it's not perfect, but you have a majority of our country that does so much in like helping other people out, like whether it be through churches or nonprofits or whatever, that are giving their arm and a leg. Sometimes they're Sometimes it's their time, sometimes it's their money, sometimes it's both, and some are even give up their life trying to help people in trouble.
Yeah.
Um,
What was it? Ben Shapiro always points out that before the wealth, the social security, and the welfare, and all the safety nets, it was charities. It was independent charities and local independent charities that were helping out people. Because how impersonal and what accountability is there if the federal government is the one just giving out the handouts? There is no
Exactly.
accountability. It's just it's just a constant. Then you're kind of caught up in the little slip knot, of Social Security, of welfare, because it just gives you enough to sustain, but never to move up on
Right.
in the social ladder. So it just keeps you where you are. It just keeps you. It's like it just gives you enough oxygen to live, or like let me put it. You're in a box. You're in a box, and it's like it's buried like 3 feet underground. It gives you what Social Security and welfare does. It gives you enough oxygen to lie there, but not enough oxygen to help you get out of the box.
Yep. Exactly.
So I don't know about you, but I wouldn't. I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay in that box. I would like to get out of that box. I would like to move around. I would like to have some autonomy and some mobility, and all the things that come with it, which are risk. Struggle. Just makes you stronger for the next the whole.
Right.
So, yeah, again, one of those lovely pre-tapes where we kind of get dark a little. We get a little black. We get a little bit of black. We kind of give you a little bit of a black. If we were any
There's
other
always
way,
something
if
about
we
it.
were fluff, you'd be sick of us. If we were all bright and sunny and cheery, and like, oh, everything's great and da 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 da, you'd probably be sick
Yeah.
of us.
I think so.
Yeah. At least we're being real. We're at least trying to get you to see maybe a different perspective.
You will always get our authentic opinion about life and things that we see at the time. Our ideas may change. It could be a few weeks from. Well, I mean, I don't think my spiritual beliefs will change anytime ever.
I don't think my views on socialism change.
Oh, but no, those will never change either. I mean, it's just you just have to look at history to realize how awful that is. But no, you'll always get like kind of an authentic ideas from us, and there may be times where we talk about something and we end up later on getting different information. We change our mind too, and that's okay. That happens. That's real life.
And speaking of authentic, I would like to give
Okay.
my authentic opinion about Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah, it's the was it that YouTube Red series? That's kind of the continuation of the Karate Kid tale.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And
Awesome.
if
And
I may bring it back to one of our other favorite topics to talk about, I wish Cobra Kai is what I wish Last Jedi had done.
oh.
Just to bring it back, just to give it, some give our little show here some consistency. We always talk about Star Wars. We always have a Simpsons reference, and what was that third thing?
All right, well, I got to hear this now.
Okay. Well, because here's the thing. Because Cobra Kai definitely expands the lore, with, but not at the expense of what of where that lore came from.
Okay.
And it did a really good job of introducing new characters, but not at the expense of the old characters.
Okay.
So yeah, they were able to bring in these new characters, these new kids, and and I was able to become fully invested in them and their progression, and but then and then again, it wasn't at the expense of the old characters, which is uh, Daniel LaRusso, of course, played by Ralph Macchio, and Johnny Lawrence, played by Billy Zabka.
Yeah.
And in a lot of in a lot of ways, this was kind of Johnny Lawrence's redemption story, because
True.
it was like it was 34. The story takes place like 34 years after the first Karate Kid movie. And Johnny Lawrence is down on his luck. He's a handyman. He drives an uh, old car. He has a failed marriage. He has a kid that can't stand him. And then and then he tries, and what is it? And then fate has it that he's brought back. He's somewhat brought back into the life of Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio's character, who's gone on to be like very successful. He owns like a few car dealerships. He lives in the nicer part of the valley, so on and so forth. Has two kids. A beautiful wife. The American dream, basically.
Right.
And so then we see Johnny Lawrence get kind of pulled into being a teacher to this kid who lives in his building, who's getting bullied, and the only reason why he does that or the only reason why he even gets drawn into this this neighbor kid's life is that the neighbor kid was getting beat up in front of Lawrence, and like the kids actually knock the kid into Johnny's car, and it's like, hey, watch the car. And the bully kid start to try to start something with him, and he lays him out. Right, and then he's not so in kind of in the reverse of Mr. Miyagi, where Mr. Miyagi would for like altruistic reasons kind of intervenes and then eventually takes Daniel under his wing as a student. Johnny Lawrence's character is a little more hesitant and didn't dispatch the bullies for altruistic reasons. It's more of just like I didn't want to get involved, but you guys were knocking my car, so I have to get involved now.
Right.
So that's kind of like the happenings of the first episode.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I gotta say, what was that?
You watched the whole series, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I watched the first two episodes. And I'm just like, holy crap, this is so much fun. And at the end of every episode, it's like, what's gonna happen next? So yeah, in one night I just binge watched the entire series. It was probably like 1 a.m. when I started. When I finished the first two episodes, and then it was like, and then I could see through my window the sun was coming up by the time by the time I finished. But I don't regret it. I don't regret it. It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and what was it? A lot of.
I think it's kind of cool that because obviously, like the way that Karate Kid plays out, that we think of Daniel as the good guy, but in reality, if you really think about it, if you really watch the movie, it's like Daniel's kind of a dick, and
right. yeah, that's actually something that they do address because like, in 2015, this person, I forget who it is, but they put out a video on YouTube about the alternative theory behind the Karate Kid and how, in fact, Daniel was actually the bad guy and Johnny was the was just like an innocent bystander. And and in the series they do kind of go down that path. When Johnny was recounting like, what had happened between him and Daniel and like, what the beef was. He does he does paint himself that way as just this innocent bystander who got roped into this rivalry.
Right.
Because like the theory initially goes like you know Daniel was making moves on like the newly broken up couple of Johnny and Elizabeth Shue's character. I forget what her character name was. And so one night, the famous beach scene where he goes down to go talk to her and try to work things out. Daniel intervenes, or Daniel just like Daniel shows up and asks, kind of being like a male feminist, like, "Oh, what's going on over here?" And asks, and then Johnny asks him to butt out, and then I think. And I think, yeah, like Johnny kind of like, it kind of sort of instigates, but Daniel could have easily just walked away after it. But Daniel gets pushed down to the ground, and then and then at that point, Daniel had the choice of just kind of walking away, but he doesn't. He gets into a fight stance, to which Johnny Lawrence responds because he was actually trained in karate, and like dispatches him, pretty handily.
Right.
And then at least in the show, Johnny said like, oh, after that, after I beat him up, I thought, that was the end of it. I didn't want anything else to do with him, but he's the one that came after me like a couple of weeks later at the dance where I was just in the bathroom minding my own business, and he drapes a hose over me while I was in the stall and soaks me again, provoking me without any reason.
Right.
So, you kind of, and then it's what also is great about this series is that you kind of end up rooting for both sides. You end up rooting for Johnny. You end up you also root for Daniel.
Well, that's kind of it. Yeah. So it's like they shifted a little bit, whereas it's kind of a little bit of somewhat of a redemption on both sides. Then, right? Is that kind of like what I'm hearing?
Well, I don't know so much of a redemption, but maybe for at least on Daniel's side, but it's more of him trying to get past some past maybe biases or prejudices. Because one of the things is like because his daughter and starts spoiler. His daughter starts like kind of seeing Johnny's student dating.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and in a scene where they're having a family dinner, it's like, oh, I don't want you to associate with any of those Cobra Kai kids, and which kind of creates like this conflict within his daughter because like she's dating this guy that is a student of Johnny's, and it's like, oh, but she kind of even says like, oh, what if they're not all bad? But it's just like kind of like Daniel's prejudice, like from his experience. Like, no, they're all bad kids. You gotta stay away from
them. Right. That's kind of I'll definitely have to check this out because you've been talking about it pretty much all week. So
yeah, I have.
And you usually it's very rare when a show comes on or something like that you're really excited about. So I'll have to check it out.
Oh, also this show is very unapologetic. and it kind of dumps on uh, pussified millennial kids, just like the
Oh, nice.
yeah, and the like kind of like the absurdity of like SJW niceties. Like there's like a there's like an assembly or something at school, and like the teacher tries not to use gendered specific pronouns and tries to be like inclusive, and it's like, I remember specifically one scene where Johnny's training his student Miguel, and I guess he has like asthma, and then like he takes like he starts to like take his inhaler, and then Johnny takes the inhaler and like, just throws it throws it against the wall, like shatters it. It's like, hey, there are no these these pussy made up diseases allowed in Cobra Kai. And I was just like, and I was pretty surprised too, because for one, this thing is being put on YouTube,
right?
So like how how did they even are allowed to do such a thing? But it might have been something worked out in the contract. Yeah, well, because it's a little weird that that a show like this is on YouTube. When
that's why
when there are other
a lot of other platforms they could have done it, but
Netflix or Hulu,
right? No, I was saying I kept seeing the commercials and stuff for it on other things. I was like, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what to make of it, and I thought it's like, well, is it gonna be any good? And I was like, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, because I thought it's like, because when I first saw the commercials for this, when I'm watching YouTube, and like the advertisement before the video starts playing, I was like, oh great, another nostalgia 80s cash grab, and yeah, so I didn't really think very highly of this show either, but I actually wasn't even thinking of watching it until I saw a review video about it, and kind of like praising the show. I was like, okay, because I think the title of the video was like, why Cobra Kai is great. And at first I thought it was like one of those like kind of like expectation reversals, where it's like, guess what, it's not that great, but yeah, but the video was talking about like all the things that I have been talking about, and how great it is. So I was like, okay, and then I watched the first 2 episodes, and I was like, holy crap! I ended up binge watching the entire season in one night.
Wow. So, well, that might be what I had to do then.
Yes. And it was just announced that they have been approved for season 2.
Oh, that's cool.
And no spoilers, but at the end of the last episode of the season, there is a surprise. There is a surprise that that makes you go, oh crap, and I think will be dealt with in season 2.
No, it sounds awesome.
Yes. So I would recommend people to go watch this, even if you haven't seen the first movie or any of the subsequent movies that follow. You'll get the gist of it. But I mean, for the younger viewers, you'll get the gist of it. And just one, I guess, just to tie it back to our initial discussion of Jordan Peterson, there's an awesome scene where the Johnny Lawrence character starts cleaning his apartment in a Jordan Peterson-esque, like getting his life together. He just kind of walks in and he kind of throws his keys down and he just kind of looks at the squalor that he's living in. And it's like time for a change, and then like you see like a montage of him like picking out like empty beer cans and old newspapers and just getting his life together.
Nice.
This is great.
Oh, that's great.
Right? Well, now you have to watch it.
I do. Now I got to. So what's on the schedule for you this week, Andy?
What is it? Well, I mean, we're not going to be able. We didn't film for Up Up Down, so I don't have any editing to do. I will tomorrow. I will be going on a fishing trip with my dad again. Just one of the benefits of being self-employed.
True.
So,
are you going fishing? Are you going fishing or just camping?
Well, yeah, camping, but the primary objective is fishing. We're going up the coast, a little bit past Santa Barbara to Lompoc, and go camping at the beach. I hope it's not as windy as it was last time, because it was pretty windy. To the point where our tent isn't built for not high winds, but
winds.
Significant wind, because when the wind blew, it caved in the side of our tent.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so it's not terribly sturdy, but hopefully the winds don't get too crazy. I think when we were there, the winds were at the very least blowing at 20 miles an hour. The projected wind for the 3 days that I'm going to be gone are in the low to mid teens. So I mean,
that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not too bad. So yeah, that's what I got going.
So you got fishing, you got camping. Let's see, me, I have let's see, like I said, some spring cleaning. I got church stuff. I have to I wasn't able to do Mother's Day last weekend, so I'm gonna have to do that on Saturday night. Like I'm gonna take my mom out to dinner.
What are you thinking about taking her?
Well, I'm letting her choose, so I actually have no idea yet where she wants to go. So we'll see.
Your mom has a favorite restaurant, or?
I just said you choose a place you want to go to. So I don't know if she necessarily has a favorite restaurant. It's just I was it might be just I'm kind of craving this. Let's go here. So it might be one of those things. So we'll see. And then probably gonna wash my car this week. I need to do that. I've been kind of putting that.
Actually, yeah, my car could use a wash. But I'm gonna go camping, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Well, like I said, clean. Honestly, I think cleaning is going to be the major agenda for the rest of the week.
You gotta clean your room.
Yep.
It's gonna make a difference. You gotta clean your room. You gotta, acknowledge your architect's father.
Yeah. And as Andy said, and I put it out on Twitter that we were going to be, missing an episode of Up by Up Down this week. But we should have something, potentially a double feature by next Thursday. And if you like our, if you want to keep supporting us, just go ahead and keep commenting and watching some of our old stuff. There's plenty to watch.
Yep. All right. I mean, I guess we've done our hour, so I guess we could call it there.
Yeah, that's kind of that works for me. I got to start getting ready anyways for what I'm supposed to be doing anyways. So that'll sounds good to me if we call it quits for here.
All right, jerk faces. That'll do it for us for tonight. even though it's the afternoon for us. Don't forget to check out all the library of other shows under the banner of Circle of Jerks podcast. The main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, and Robert's show Up by Up Down. Don't forget to also, as Robert said, support us. I mean, right now we're not monetized. This is all out of our own pockets. But if you could help us out by maybe leaving a like, giving us that thumbs up, and leaving us a comment, and don't forget. And if you really enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon and how often you'd like to be notified of new videos or such, because just hitting the subscribe button doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yep.
So you really have to let YouTube know that you really want to know when we upload content. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts. Twitter at podcastcoj, and on Instagram, Circle of Jerks Podcast. And thanks for joining us. We'll do it all again next week.
Sounds like a plan, Andy.
And we'll say goodnight.